welcome, Aleksandra.
Thank you so
Welcome
much.
to Pints Leaders. I'm excited for our conversation today. We first met a week or two ago, and we've been planning to do this ever since. I'm really excited to get into this with you. But first, we are going to try some smoothies. It's a little too early in the day to do beer or wine. So,
Yes.
Aleksandra made us some smoothies. What do we have here?
All right, so this is bananas, hemp milk, strawberries, blueberries, peanut butter, and a date.
Wonderful.
Just for a little sweetness.
Both are the same?
Yeah, both exactly the same.
This
Yours
is
has
great.
a little more peanut butter.
Nice.
This is like official.
This is very good. I'm going to put this not all the way out so I don't waste any because this looks great.
Yes, this might trip a little bit. Just put
Got
that
some
right there.
napkins. We're safe. Well, cheers.
Cheers to you. Thanks you so
Thanks
much.
for bringing something healthy today.
Absolutely.
This is really cool.
No pressure for your future hosts.
Wow.
Is that good or what?
That's very good. A+.
Awesome.
Nice.
Let me know if I have a little strawberry smoothie or something.
Same. We might have to just use audio for this podcast. But I want to do a quick intro for Aleksandra. Aleksandra is a life consultant and author, born in the USSR, presently Moldova, and she has lived in many great cities. Professionally, she has spent time as an attorney, has sold magazines, delivered food, and even done a little writing. Personally, she has embarked on a lifetime worth of journeys. A fun fact, she and her husband became nomads for 5 years, traveled around the country, car camping, and backpacking around the world. That sounds pretty exciting. You've also incorporated house sitting into your travels, which has led you to live in so many places around the world. Aleksandra has been described by her peers as a lifelong learner, spontaneous, adventurous, courageous, and crazy. Sounds like a good friend to have. Her mission is to make people believe in themselves again by achieving their best and most authentic self, to achieve the holy duo, inner and outer success. What sets Aleksandra apart from others in her field is her unique personal journey. She's eager to share her experience, knowledge, and stories with the world because people need to know they aren't alone in the darkness and there's hope in every circumstance. I love that. She's married to the most supportive and loving husband, and they recently celebrated their 8-year anniversary on May 10th. Congrats.
Thank you so much.
And they have an adorable cat who doubles as an alarm clock. I totally get that. I've got a couple dogs that wake me up when they feel like it.
Yes, you understand.
But fun fact is that you and your husband were nomads for 5 years. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on this podcast today is to give your perspective as a life consultant and what it means to be in our comfort zones, because that can mean a lot of things for a lot of different people, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So, for me, that looks different than what it does for you. But all in all, there are some common characteristics and traits that come along with that comfort zone. So can you just give us a little bit about that and what that means in relation to your life and what you've experienced?
Yeah, sure. So I think the word comfort zone, I think because it has comfort in front of it, it kind of throws people off. So the word comfort is a beautiful word, right? Like comfort is a great thing. If you're comfortable financially, if you're comfortable in your relationship with your peers, or you're comfortable at home, these are all amazing things. The word that I focus in on that prevents it from being a positive thing is the word zone. Right? Because zone, if you think of a zone, whether you're talking about real estate or you're at a concert arena or something, right? A zone is a restriction. It's an area where you're not allowed to leave and you feel trapped in a sense, right? So I think everything is great to a limit. So that couch that we have that's super comfortable and we love sitting on it and watching TV, it's amazing. But if you spend, as we've noticed in 2020, you spend too much time there, it becomes hell, right? It becomes a misery, becomes something you want to escape. So I think that for me, I started realizing that, and I say this all the time, I say so many people are so comfortable being comfortable that they don't realize how uncomfortable it really is.
Sure. That's a great point. You got to say that again.
Okay. So many people are really comfortable being comfortable that they don't realize how uncomfortable it really is.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, it really was like a big game changer for me because when I realized that I was comfortable in my space just because I was what I was doing for so long. But there were so many signs around me that this was not a happy place. I wasn't fulfilled inside, and it looks differently for different people. So some people might have everything great on the outside, right? They have the great job, they have the great friends, the spouse, the picket fence, everything they want. But inside they're feeling really unfulfilled and discouraged, and like their inside is not matching what they're presenting on the outside.
Sure.
For me, that's a comfort zone. You might be comfortable financially, but what else is there, right? If you're coming home at night, you can't sleep at night, or you have health issues, or you're fighting with your spouse because of A, B, or C, whatever the situation is, that's not a comfortable place to be, even though your whole life might seem like you're comfortable. So I don't know if that kind of geared off or even answered your question.
No, that's phenomenal, because that does, the comfort zone could be, to your point, complacency. Like, hey, I've kind of got what I've got. It is what it is. I'm not going to either change it or influence it. It's easier for me not to change it, right?
Exactly.
Or they may perceive it as such, but really it's kind of eating you up on the inside, right?
Exactly.
You're wasting talents, you're wasting energy, you're wasting productive things that you could be doing for yourself, your family, for others, by kind of just staying in that place, right? You're not going to grow. You may even lose a little. I guess if you're not growing, you're losing, right? But what is the first step kind of for someone in that, we'll call it a rut or that zone, that restriction? What does someone have to start doing in their mind to see themselves there and work themselves away from that position?
That's a great question. And before I answer that, I just want to touch on you saying the word complacency, which is so big, because I like writing quotes down. So I wrote this quote down. I remember like 8 years ago, where I wrote that my fear of complacency was greater than my fear of failure.
Very nice.
And that's kind of where you have to understand that where you are right now is the lowest you could possibly be. If you understand that no matter what you do, if you fail and you fall on your ass and I don't know if you can curse on here, but
yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. And you kind of get yourself out of that situation, but it goes awry and it goes the worst way possible, it's still better than when you are now, because everyone says this, right? The regret of not doing something is always greater than the regret of doing something.
Right.
So you need to be able and willing to change your mind. So many of us, I think, we've been put in a culture where we're so focused on commitment and we're so focused on sticking with something, right? And those are great qualities, but a lot of times people are so nervous and scared to just change their mind and understand, you know what, I'm doing this, but it just doesn't work for me anymore. To agree to something that you decided to do at 20 years old or 10 years old or even 40 years old, and then decide, okay, well, I'm doing this for the rest of my life. Just because you've made that decision at a certain point in your life before you got to the place you are now. Right. It's a disservice to yourself, because you're limiting yourself and you're limiting your potential, you're limiting where you could be, and ultimately you're not being fulfilled, and everything is going to be screaming at you, telling you to get out of this place. Right. And you have to be able to just change your mind and say, you know what, I was wrong. Yeah. And that's okay.
That brings me to think of almost our entire generation that thought that going to college was... You had to go to college to get a good job, to be able to pay your bills and build a life, right? And how many people at 17, 18 years old know what they want to do for the next 40, 50 years, right? You have no idea. I mean, I started off in sports medicine. I'm over here in financial, sales and doing mortgages. They may seem unrelated. My experience helped me get to where I am, but, the perception at the beginning was, I have to know where I'm going. I have to make my decision. I have to go through my education. I have to take this path. And then to change that took quite a bit for me. It was, man, am I going to leave all this experience behind? Am I going to leave all this money I spent, all this time I put in, all the relationships I made? Am I just going to leave that and start over? But I did, because I understood that's not what was going to make me happy. I did it, but that wasn't it.
Exactly. And I love what you touched on with the experience part, because I feel like I've been in a search for the purpose of life since I was like 5 years old. Like I love existential questions. I'm all about that. Yeah. And I just realized that our purpose in life, and for me especially, is just to experience. Sure. Just to have experiences. That's what it's about. When you're looking back on your deathbed, hopefully at 230 years old or whatever, and you're kind of looking back at your life, you're not going to be like, well, I'm so happy I stayed in that career forever and that was amazing. You're going to be like, wow, I did this and this, and I took a gamble here. And I guarantee you that your experience in sports medicine and your education, even though it wasn't the right path for you, it tremendously helped you going forward, and it gave you a certain advantage that other people in your field don't have, because they don't have that unique experience. So there is no, like for me, I went to law school, okay? Like I spent tens of thousands of dollars, and it was the most difficult decision of my life to be like, I'm going to leave that. It was huge because I don't come from a family of attorneys.
Right.
I'm an immigrant, right? So for me, I didn't even know any attorneys growing up. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And when I made that decision, I just had to understand that that experience is going to take me somewhere, and I'm going to use that experience. I just don't need to use it in the realm that people expect me to.
I love that. That's exactly right. Because expectations, try to live up to expectations, that'll crush you.
Yeah, especially other people's expectations, right? Like, that's the hardest thing. And coming from, and I don't even want to say just from my generation, just in general, people want to make their parents proud. They want to make their peers proud. They have expectations that they're fulfilling that have nothing to do with them. At the end of the day, these people don't even know you, right? Like your parents, they might know you a little bit, but how much do they really know you? Your inner thoughts, your desires, all your experiences, your talents. You know, they only see you in a certain light, or your friends or the people who've grown around you. But sometimes that's a disservice because you stay within the parameter of what they're used to. They don't see your growth. So if you are not able to grow and make those decisions based on who you are now, and you're always making those decisions from the place of what people think of you, you're never going to change. You're never going to grow, and you're going to be miserable. And you probably will wake up one day, midlife crisis or whatever, and do something crazy, but do it in a very drastic and maybe detrimental way than if you really take time and intentionally make those decisions.
Yeah. And I will say, it leads me to like my last question. When you make a change, when you get out of that comfort zone, other things change around you, right?
Absolutely.
In particular, the people change around you, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's by mistake. You maybe earned or lost a relationship, and sometimes it's intentional. And for me, it was a tough thing to accept that sometimes my friends weren't the people I needed to be around.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But in the other case, it kind of showed me the kind of people I should be around. So what are some of the uncomfortable aspects of getting out of your comfort zone that someone should address within themselves? Because I know for me, the hardest part was like losing some of those people I thought were close friends, but we no longer have the same activities. We no longer have the same goals or the time spent or the same experiences. We're now living in pretty different worlds because I'm realizing what I need to do for myself. And that kind of hurts, you know, leaving some people behind and maybe gaining new relationships, depending on who you are. If you're scared of new relationships, that's tough. But what other things make you uncomfortable when you're making those kind of changes to your life?
Yeah, I think that's great what you touched on, because that is so true. You will lose probably most of your circle. You might change your environment completely. You might move, and you have to be okay with that and understand that that's the part of it. And I went through the same thing. I had a very strong circle of friends that I was friends with for 10, 15, 20 years. And when I changed and started making drastic changes, it makes people around you very uncomfortable because they're used to seeing you a certain way. So you have to be okay with that. But there's some things you just cannot prepare for. You really don't know how it's going to go down. You just have to know that this decision, it's almost like a life or death kind of situation, because you're so miserable, you're not living anymore, right? So you're not experiencing life. So you have to understand that what you're making a decision, it's for the sanity of your mental health, your emotional health, and for you to actually live your life. So things around you will crumble, but you have to hold on to the hope that things are going to rebuild in such a more beautiful, powerful, and stronger way than ever before, because you're going to attract people back into your life and new people into your life that you never would have even imagine to. And the good thing is that those doors are still open for those old friends and friendships, right? It depends on you matching the same energy. So you fall away because now you have different habits and perspectives. But if they align at some level and you meet back together, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. But people shouldn't be scared of new relationships. New relationships is amazing. That's where it's at. Like, I got to meet you. I never would have met you before. And this enriches my life because I have conversations that you don't have with friends. With friends, you kind of repeat the same patterns, the same things. So it's beautiful. And I would say for people, know it's going to be uncomfortable, but find peace in that discomfort, because that discomfort is ultimately leading you to a place that you never could have imagined. You'll be happier than ever before, and you'll be fulfilled in a way that you really couldn't even contemplate before you made those decisions.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I love you put those words together perfectly. I really appreciate that. To kind of tie it all together, do you have any maybe book recommendations or resources that you have used or leaned on in your life that you like to share with others?
Yes. I have 2 books. Should I just pick one?
Yeah, tell us about both. We've got a few minutes.
Okay, so I have 2 that I feel have impacted me a lot.
Sure.
I read probably like a million books in my lifetime, but one of them was when I was going through a really dark and lonely place in my life. My whole life around me was crumbling. It was at the end of law school, and I read this book called When Everything Changes, Change Everything. And just that title alone, honestly, you don't even need to read the book.
Right.
Because that title alone is everything. When you're in a situation where you just feel at the bottom and you just feel completely disillusioned with how life is going, just change everything.
Wow.
Become a different person. Stop thinking from the person that you are and just change things and watch things change around you.
Yeah.
Incredible book.
Sounds like get out of that comfort zone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other one was when I, right before I left my law job the second time around, I was in my office contemplating, what am I going to do with my life? I'm miserable. I'm kind of in the same spot again. How am I going to get out of this? I read the book, The Alchemist, and it's a story about, I read it a while ago. I really need to reread it, but just a really short, beautifully written story about this guy who goes on this journey, doesn't know what's going to happen, and things just start happening for him, and he starts creating things out of nothing, and opportunities and people come into his life at the right path. And that is the ultimate journey. I read that book. A half hour later, I quit my job, and that is what started my nomad journey with my husband.
Wonderful.
And I lived to that teaching of live, no plans, just trust that things are going to work out, trust your intuition, trust the universe, believe that the right things will come in your path when it's necessary.
Wonderful. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing those. And we'll make sure we repost those books with the episode to make sure whoever is listening can have an opportunity to take a look at those. But you said some great things there. Comfort zone being a restriction. I never really thought about that. And, a fear of complacency. I thought that was a pretty deep thought there, and I'd rather fail than be complacent. That was pretty huge.
Thank you.
And our purpose is, as humans, is to experience. We're not really meant to live that boring life. Find peace in discomfort. This is one that I really personally love because when adversity comes my way, I like to think that I lean into it. I push into it quite a bit harder. And the harder you squeeze, the more juice you get, right?
Absolutely.
So, and change your circle and your environment when you're looking to get out of your comfort zone. And it may make others uncomfortable, and you have to be okay with that because you're on your own personal journey. When I was doing some thoughts for this episode, I came across a video on Instagram. I don't know if you know who Inky Johnson is. College football player, excellent athlete, ended up sustaining a really serious injury and lost function to his right arm. And he's now become a huge motivational speaker, speaks to teams and businesses all across the country. And something he said stuck with me in one of his videos. He said, the longer it takes to happen, the more you'll appreciate it when it finally does. Right?
Yes.
And so the best things in life don't come immediately. They come through hard work, effort, perseverance. And just when you're at the end, everything seems to suck. It's all dark. You break through that. It's like, that's what I learned,
Absolutely.
And that's my favorite part of life.
Absolutely. And enjoy the journey, right? Like, stop waiting for the end piece. Don't wait for just the ultimate goal. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, enjoy the ups and downs, and know, and I believe in this wholeheartedly, that when you're facing a low and you're in that low situation and you think you're never going to climb out of it, just know that at the other side, it just means that something great is around the corner.
That's wonderful. That's a perfect way to wrap up the episode. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to have you back. So there's so much more to talk about. I mean, this bio alone, we could probably be there for just a little bit. But thank you today for talking with us about the comfort zone, what it looks like to start getting out of it, and kind of things that happen when you're moving your way out. So appreciate your time today, and cheers. Thanks again for the smoothie.
Thank you so much. You were an amazing podcast host, and I'm really grateful that this was my first podcast. So
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.